Hey everyone, today we're talking all about sleep. Sleep plays such a critical role in both our physical and mental health and has such a significant influence on so many of our hormones. So that's also related to things like weight gain and chronic disease. So today we're going to dive into those links a little bit more. We're going to talk to an expert, Casey Aivano, who's a nurse practitioner in the sleep medicine arena, and talk about some practical ways that we can hopefully start getting to sleep better at night. So Casey received her Bachelor's of Science degree in nursing from the University of Rhode Island back in 2007. She began her nursing career working in a busy inpatient cardiothoracic surgical unit where she primarily cared for patients following open heart surgery. After 10 years caring for acutely ill patients, in the same role, she opted to advance her nursing career with the eventual goal of providing proactive care rather than reactive care. She went on to receive her Master of Science degree in nursing from Sacred Heart University. Following graduation, she proudly accepted a position as a nurse practitioner in a local sleep disorders clinic. As her practice continues to rapidly grow and expand, she takes great pride in improving the health of her community by addressing sleep as a pillar of overall physical and mental well-being. So take a listen to the awesome recommendations that Casey is going to share with us today. Welcome to the Lifestyle PA podcast, where we talk about all things women's health and lifestyle to help you become the healthiest and happiest version of yourself. All right, Casey, thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited to have you on. I feel like sleep is such a critical component to our physical and mental health, especially for women. And I feel like as women, and especially moms, and especially if we work, like it is just something we struggle with so much. So let's just kind of dive right in and let me ask you, what are you seeing a lot of in your sleep clinic right now?
So right now it's a lot of insomnia. So sleep apnea is huge. And there's estimates out there right now that like 70% of the population over age 50 has sleep apnea, but I'm getting a lot more referrals for insomnia. And it's been interesting, I would say, over the last year or so, because the American Heart Association added sleep as part of its essential healthy tips. So it used to be essential 7 and now it's the essential 8. So it's really been recognized as such a big, important part of overall well-being. And now all the insomnia is being sent our way. So a lot of difficulties falling asleep and staying asleep.
Yeah, it truly has, right? And I mean, because even women who come to me and they're like, yeah, like I don't get it. I eat super healthy. I go to the gym 5 days a week and look over that stuff and everything looks great. And I'm like, so how much are you sleeping at night? Like, tell me more about your sleep. And they're like, maybe I get like 5 hours or I wake up at 3 and it's crazy, right? Because I'm so glad the American Heart Association added that. Like, that's why we're in the field, right? Like, we love science and how things are continued to be studied and we learn so much more. And now we know that things like getting less than 7 to 9 hours, significantly increases your risk for heart disease, stroke, diabetes, all those lovely things.
Oh.
Now, when you talk about insomnia is huge, right? And I'll kind of ask you a little bit about treatment options for that too. But with insomnia, are you seeing it in a lot of women who are like 35 to 65?
Yes.
Yeah. And so tell me we call it insomnia, but tell me like, what do they come in complaining of? Like, just so our listeners maybe don't feel so alone knowing like what they're experiencing,
Yeah. So a lot of times it's that I lay my head on the pillow and no matter what I do, I just can't turn my brain off. I find myself with ruminating thoughts. I can't fall asleep. I'm tossing and turning and nothing I do can put me to sleep. And then on the flip side, I also see a lot of, I have no difficulty falling asleep, but I wake up 6 to 8 times a night and sometimes I can't fall back to sleep. Sometimes I can, but I wake up in the morning like I never slept at all.
Yeah. So tell me, kind of walk us through, like, how do you even approach that? Like, what is the first thing you do to kind of get to the root cause or see what can help them?
Yeah. So I think the biggest part of it for me is just spending time with people, asking the right questions. And we take something called a sleep history. So I start and I take pretty much a full 24-hour recall. What's the first thing you did when you woke up and what's the last thing you did before you went to bed? Everything from the amount of coffee you drink to did you work out? Did you work? How many kids do you have? Do you have pets? And really trying to go through and pick what could be disrupting hormones, what could be disrupting the quality of your environment, what could be disrupting your mood, anything like that. And how can we approach it to kind of make it better? And then I love to spend time educating about sleep hygiene because there are so many pieces of that puzzle that patients will say, I've tried everything. And then when you talk about it, they really maybe haven't, or they've missed a couple of the really important ones.
100%. And you're absolutely right. Like the reasons why people have difficulty falling asleep or waking up in the middle of the night, those vary, right? Like as women, we all have different types of stressors. But you're right. It's like simple, consistent changes. Like I am a huge fan of just sleep hygiene myself. And I'm like, you should be pretending you're sleeping in a cave, right? Like it should be like 65 degrees. It should be pretty dark, like no light interference at all. So tell us what you found for like essentials for what we call sleep hygiene that really help.
Yeah. So the first thing I always talk about is light promotion and light withdrawal, right? So we have a lot of circadian and, kind of diurnal rhythms that are natural to our body, and we want to work with them and not against them. So the best thing you can do in the morning is give yourself some morning sun, and really either get out there, take a walk, sit on the porch, whatever you need to do just to kind of start your day. Have a really nice, good, high protein, complex carb breakfast to give you the energy to start your day. And then throughout the day, just try to find moments to reset and to do what you need to do in order to kind of keep your stress levels at a minimum and prevent those big cortisol surges or, those nasty things we always hear about. Cortisol is normal. It's supposed to be in the body, but it's supposed to be rhythmic. And we want to make sure that we're supporting that rhythm nice and high in the morning and nice and low at night. And then on the flip side, later on at night, you want to make sure that, you're not exposing yourself to too much screen time. We've heard a lot, I think, in these trending concepts of blue light. And I've had patients say, I bought blue light glasses. And I'm like, well, that's great, but they probably don't do anything. But the premise of blue light, it's an even shorter wave light than the sun. So while our retina and our eyes perceive these sun's shortwave lights to promote wakeful hormones, blue light does the same thing tenfold. So, I'm at night and I'm thinking the best thing for me is to dissociate and turn my day off. I'm going to stare at my phone or stare at the TV or a tablet. All you're doing is promoting your wakeful hormones and neurotransmitters. So keep those lights low, find nice calming things to do with your family or by yourself, whatever that might be, and then promote those sleepy hormones to start kicking in on their own so that you feel like you can kind of go through that process effectively as you try to fall asleep and stay asleep.
Such good tips. I laugh because like 2 years ago, I bought those blue light glasses and they looked super cute. Like, I think I just liked wearing them because they looked nice. And one night it literally occurred to me, I'm like, as I'm staring at my phone, I'm like, I'm still staring at light. Like this is still stimulating my brain. And I definitely didn't notice a significant improvement with them. So I'm so glad you touched upon that.
I bought them too. I tried them.
Yep. Yeah, it's trendy, right? And like but no significant difference here. So,
Sure.
So when would you recommend? Like we've all heard different guidelines, but when do you think like to truly like put your phone aside, shut the TV off, stop working on your laptop? Is it like an hour or truly 2 hours before? Two, right?
Which is kind of a joke because some people aren't even home from work 2 hours before bedtime. We're living these productive lifestyles but 2 hours before bedtime really should be that time that you give yourself away from screens.
Yeah. And it's hard, right? Because like, again, like you're a mom of two very active girls and you work full time. And it's like, as moms, after like you finish dinner and do the dishes and you're packing lunches, you literally just want to do something so mindless. But we've all been there, right? You fall into like the real trap and an hour goes by and then you're like, oh my God, it's 10 o'clock. I should have been asleep 30 minutes ago. And then you have trouble falling asleep. So it's this vicious cycle where you're right. If we just pay more attention and we almost, I feel like, backtrack it a little bit, right? Like instead of being like, okay, 2 hours before bed, I'll shut it off, say like, okay, for the remainder of this week, let me try 30 minutes earlier than I have been doing. Just like any other change, right? Like just making it a little bit realistic and then week by week, kind of shaving off more of that time. That's something that I personally did like over the past couple of years. And it takes time. All change does, but I feel like it's such a truly meaningful change for
Yeah.
your sleep.
And everybody knows drastic changes don't stick. So something that's gradual and you can trick your brain into slowly acclimating to it, it becomes a new behavior. It becomes a new habit.
Exactly. So now tell me, so if someone works on those sleep hygiene practices, right? Like get off the screen 2 hours before, make it dark, 65 degrees. What if they've truly been practicing that and they're still having some difficulty? I had a couple of questions for you regarding supplements and medications. So sleep medications, which unfortunately I feel like are so prevalent. Can you tell us when they can be beneficial, how long you should truly stay on them, and just kind of those treatment options for us?
Sure. So what we're touching on with kind of the whole sleep hygiene realm and all of that is more of a physiological insomnia. That the gold standard treatment for psychophysiological insomnia is cognitive behavioral therapy. So that's, we can touch on that too.
Definitely.
That's how you fix the problem. Medications are a Band-Aid, and you're really not fixing any of the problems that might be underlying. So it's not going to do anything. And then long term, you're going to become dependent on it without changing the behaviors. With another type of insomnia, something we call adjustment insomnia, happens during periods of acute grief or acute stress or things that we anticipate are going to go away relatively quickly. Those would be good scenarios to have sleep medications on hand just to kind of get you over the hump so that you don't fall into this crazy phase of sleep deprivation. But really that's, in my opinion, and the American Sleep Association, probably the only realm where it would be reasonable.
Totally makes sense. Yeah. So again, super personalized, should be really short term. And definitely, even if it's kind of that acute phase, should still be paired with cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Like to your point, years and years, like that has been the gold standard because it's effective. In so many realms of life, I think we all need a therapist and a psychologist on board. So definitely when it comes to sleep, because it's so vital for our health. So Casey, then talk to me about melatonin, because I've heard varying things. Is it something that's okay to use long term, or do you really not want your body getting used to it?
So there's a lot of different schools of thought when it comes to melatonin. It's relatively benign. There are some people who think that, if you keep taking an external form of a hormone, a neurotransmitter, whatever we're trying to mimic, that your body is going to naturally produce less of it. That's yes and no. The thing with melatonin is it's not really FDA regulated to the best of its ability. We don't really know what we're getting. We don't know how much we're getting. And what you're seeing in the supermarket, in the pharmacies, is a really high dose form of melatonin. So the most effective doses of melatonin are really like 1 to 3 milligrams. And what they're selling over the counter is 5 to 10 milligrams. And that can cause next day drowsiness. It can cause vivid nightmares. It can cause really strange side effects. And again, at the end of the day, if you're using it as a crutch, you're not fixing the problem. So it's really personal. I swing both ways, and it really depends on the person to say, sure, this is an appropriate thing for you to take, or no, let's try something different.
Yeah, totally agree. And I love that, like start low, go slow, and also still kind of gradually address like the underlying cause of it all. But that's a really good point to say, like truly relatively benign, right? Like way better than a prescribed like sleep medication for sure. And it's one of those things where some people, like especially some women, they don't want to be on a ton of supplements, but if they're in that boat where maybe they need to try it for a little bit and they do have some relief, like it really is improving their sleep, then great. Like that's great. Then I would kind of promote that and stay on that if it's letting them get the 7 to 9 hours without feeling super drowsy in the morning versus like, oh, I shouldn't be on this. I don't want to take a supplement, but then they're not able to sleep more than 5 hours, right? Because then it's that risk versus benefit kind of situation. So 100% agree. It's personalized for sure. So the only other than melatonin, as far as supplements, for my perimenopausal and menopausal patients, there's a decent amount of literature supporting tart cherry juice and magnesium. Have you had any luck with that with your patients?
Absolutely. Yeah. So tart cherry juice does contain some small amounts of natural melatonin in it. So the same premise, we're promoting these sleepy hormones that are going to allow our brains to fall asleep easier, reduce your sleep latency, as well as the number of times you wake up. There is some degree of blood glucose control that we also get from tart cherry juice. So if we're thinking of blood glucose from a perspective of that promotes us to fall into a better sleep, then that's also the same thing. Again, pretty benign. If it works, great. If it doesn't, don't waste your money. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Perfect. And same with the magnesium glycinate, right? Like that's really effective just because it promotes relaxation. And again, like we've said before, the thing with supplements is tricky because they're unfortunately not regulated, but, discuss with your provider and just go with a reputable company for sure.
And then scenarios where some of these supplements are not safe to take. So like with melatonin, I always tell my patients, if you are on an anti-seizure medication or a blood thinner like Coumadin or warfarin, it can actually impact the efficacy of those medications. So you want to be very careful and probably not take it. And the same thing with magnesium. If your body's not able to clear it effectively because of your kidneys or something, you want to make sure that you're really discussing those with your provider first.
Such a great point. Yes, always do that because everyone has a different medical history. They're on different medications, allergies, etc. So such a good point. And I know, Casey, you had talked about the importance of sun exposure, which is huge, right? For our circadian rhythm, like you were saying. So we know getting that like right in the beginning of the day, if you can get it before 3 p.m., even better. It will just help you sleep better at night. What about physical activity? Like with your patients who you've recommended kind of getting that exercise, even if it's like a 10 or 20 minute walk, have they seen the benefit of that when it comes to sleep?
100%. So the interesting thing about sleep is the purpose of sleep is for physical restoration, right? So we've spent the entire day exhausting our body, potentially injuring cells, doing things that need sleep. You need restoration. So if you are, and I use the term lovingly, but if you're a bump on a log all day, there's nothing to restore. There's nothing to fix or benefit or any of that. To that, I'm not promoting sitting around all day, but if you're sitting around all day, your body's not going to go into a deeper sleep pattern or a longer deep sleep pattern to get that physical regeneration. So the more you can do for your body to stay active, you're going to promote the ability to fall into those deep sleep patterns. So there's all different recommendations for the amount of exercise, which type of exercise you should do, both for heart benefits and everything. But getting up and moving your body. 10, 20, 30 minutes, work your way up. You will find that you sleep deeper and that you sleep better. And it's always very interesting to me when patients come back and they're like, oh yeah, I definitely sleep better on days that I go to the gym. And then the days I don't go to the gym, I find it a little bit more difficult to fall asleep or stay asleep. So it's a gift to your body from so many different avenues to get out there and be active. And being active in the sun is even better.
Exactly. Yeah. You're just like killing two birds with one stone, right? And you're right, because honestly, when you intentionally track something, it's the same way with food, like in our nutrition, right? But same thing with sleep. If you keep a sleep journal and like just tell yourself, do it for 2 weeks and track like what you're eating, when you're getting off screen time, if you exercise that day, and the following morning, write how the quality of your sleep was.
Yeah.
Casey and I can both like probably bet on our lives that you will 1,000%, the quality of your sleep will drastically improve over those 2 weeks. So it truly doesn't take much, like literally 10 to 20 minutes of any movement. Super helpful.
And to your point, sleep diaries are fabulous. I use them all the time. Sleepfoundation.org is a wonderful tool for patients. It's been vetted. It is endorsed by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. And it's really patient friendly. They have a very, very good sleep diary available. You can even print it to fill out. There's a PDF form where you can fill it out online if you so choose. And if for no other reason, it helps you track things that are helping or hurting your sleep. And you begin to see patterns that you can adjust on a personal level versus just blanket recommendations.
Yes, love helpful resources like that. So I'll definitely include that in the episode notes too, sleepfoundation.org. And especially when it's free resources, that's even better. So awesome. So tell me, I know in the beginning we talked a little bit about sleep apnea, right? And just how prevalent that's becoming. And we know that that's a breathing related sleep disorder. A lot of the times it's linked to being overweight or obese, can be due to kind of some anatomical differences in the face. But we do see it with hormonal changes as well with perimenopausal, menopausal women. A lot of that too, maybe we start because of that lower estrogen and rise in cortisol or the stress hormone, getting that belly fat, which impacts so much, including our sleep. So Casey, can you tell us, like, when patients come in complaining of what symptoms, would that kind of prompt you to be like, we might want to explore this further with a sleep test and kind of rule out sleep apnea?
Yeah. So the number one thing is always snoring. The amount of times I've had people tell me, everybody snores. Well, no, you really shouldn't be snoring. Snoring is turbulence in your airway. Is it turbulent or is it obstructed? We don't really know. All the more reason to screen for it. I think if I had it my way, everybody would get a sleep study. We get mammograms, we get colonoscopies. Let's throw a sleep study in there too, just as a means of screening. But generally snoring, I would say, would be the number one complaint. And number two is just fragmented and non-restorative sleep. You're waking up a lot for unknown reasons. And it's not like you're waking up gasping and choking for air. You're just disrupted and you're not sure why, but maybe that preceding cause could have been a brief apneic episode. And when you have sleep apnea, it's not good quality sleep. Your brain is constantly focused on maintaining your airway so that you can stay alive. It's it's survival 101 that our bodies are built to do. But if you're doing that all night long, you're not resting, relaxing, and restoring like you should be. You could get 7 to 9 hours of sleep and it feels like 3. So kind of that's what I hear a lot of as well. And then we try a sleep study and there's an abundance of referrals for home sleep studies, but I'm also a big fan of in-lab studies too. There's a huge high false negative rate with home studies. So I'm always cautious of taking that as gold standard. And more so just making sure you're listening to the full patient complaint. And if I still have high suspicion of sleep apnea, even after a negative home study, at that point, I would refer to the in-lab just to get my eyes on something at a deeper level.
Totally agree. Such helpful information, because I also feel like for women, there's other reasons why our blood pressure starts to increase. But when you have women with high blood pressure who maybe they've been on a low dose medication, like an antihypertensive, and then a second gets added. And then you're like, okay, this is weird. Like you do a diet recall, she's active. And then again, you ask about their sleep. And a lot of the time, uncontrolled sleep apnea will cause what's known as resistant hypertension or high blood pressure. So I'm totally with you. And I wish we could just like wave our magic wand and get a sleep test for everyone, for sure. Because so many people are like, or if they're single, right, they don't have a partner in bed, they don't know if they're snoring. Some people don't know if they have these classic signs, but they're feeling so fatigued the next day. Their blood pressure is creeping up. Their risk for heart disease and stroke is rising, and they don't know it, which is why it's called the silent killer. So until you address the underlying cause, which can be a sleep disorder, those problems will continue to worsen over time. So all such good points. Yeah. So definitely if you're experiencing any of those symptoms, bring them up to your provider. To Casey's point, a home sleep test is super, super easy. And I 100% agree with you, Casey, that sometimes when it's warranted, an in-lab is better for further evaluation. But just bring it up to your provider. Like if you're having any of these symptoms, it can be truly life-changing for you to address. So Awesome. And then, so Casey, last question for you before I let you go. As a working mom of two very busy, active girls and full-time working, you've been so busy lately. What are like just a top few of your just practical pro tips to ensure a good night's sleep, or at least kind of start us on the road to get there?
So really for me, it's two things. One is not getting sucked into the cycle of leaving your house in the morning, going through your day, rushing through to bedtime, really finding meaningful time with your family. And I will tell you, I'm not always the best at it, but finding meaningful time with your family. And, if you have after school activities with the kids, allow them to do those things, but get home, have dinner together, chat, really find the things that boost those happy hormones, your serotonin, get those things flowing because that actually promotes sleep. And the second thing is, again, I'm going to bring it back to the phone, put the phone away, plug it in across the room. Don't be tempted to tap it. Don't get that dopamine hit when you just see you've got a message or notification. Let it go. Put the screens away. I'm a big fan of reading. I think anybody who enjoys reading, it's a great way to get that dissociation we're looking for without the overstimulation. And if you can kind of hop in bed and, there's this old adage in sleep that the bed is for sleep and sex, or intimate practices. I add reading into that mix a little bit too, because it is okay to have that book in front of you until you feel that drowsy feeling come on, and then you put your book away and you go to bed. And it tends to be a great equation if you can do those three things. For me personally, helps me fall asleep, stay asleep, and I'm good.
I love that. And that's one thing I've started working on myself too, because you're right. I mean, like, we're in this field, but we're still human. We're still moms and we all have things to work on, right? But even like it's everywhere. So even on my smartwatch, right? Like now I've not only started to like put my phone aside during dinner and for the rest of the night, I have to take my watch off because I don't want any of the notifications. Like to your point, you can get so easily sucked in that we just have to be more aware and make the effort to be like after this time or during and after dinner, put them all aside. Like if it's truly emergency, someone will get in touch with you, right? But, and the other thing too is to your point, like also reading as a family activity. Like again, as a parent, I can't say this enough. And this, like kids are always watching you, like sometimes too much, like, and you're like, how did they even see that? Like how did they pick up on that? But you don't want to teach them, like they're already going to have enough to battle like these next 10 years, like their generation. And you don't want to teach them, you always need to be on your phone. You're always looking at your watch. You want to teach them to have a meaningful conversation, like especially over dinner, and take the time to read. So I love that. That is such good advice. So thank you so much for your time and your expertise today. And I will definitely put that sleepfoundation.org link in the episode notes. I so appreciate it. And for anyone who has any sleep specific questions, please just shoot me a message and we will be happy to address it. So thanks so much, Casey.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If you're ready to invest in yourself to become the healthiest and happiest version of you, head over to my website, thelifestylepa.org, to learn more about my 3-month lifestyle program, where I offer a very personalized, whole-body approach to optimize your health. In addition to your 1-hour initial consultation, we have 30-minute bi-weekly Zoom visits. You receive my 45-page lifestyle handbook, lab work interpretation, unlimited communication and support through a secure messaging platform, 3 months of meal plans tailored to your needs, and guidance on mastering the 6 pillars of lifelong health: nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, positive psychology, and social connections. I can't wait to connect with you and help you to truly optimize your health once and for all.